The fracturing of the council. The council chamber glittered like a jewel, suspended in darkness. An artificial sphere of light hovered at its heart, illuminating the sweeping tiers of alien delegates who filled the seats in a churning storm of motion and sound. Voices clashed in dozens of languages, translators lagging behind the chaos. The chamber was meant to be a temple of unity, but tonight it had become an echo chamber of fear. "Order!" boomed the speaker, his resonant voice carrying through the din. A Zalari, his long crystalline limbs gleamed with refracted light, but his authority was crumbling by the minute. "Delegates, I beg you, compose yourselves." The storm only grew louder. Reports had arrived less than an hour ago. Frontier colonies burned. The Kroth Dominion, thought to be preoccupied with wars in the outer spiral, had turned its fury toward council space. Entire fleets were already lost. "They are demons," a scaled Veroan delegate hissed, claws scraping the desk before him. "World after world has been consumed. My own cousins on Vedhar were reduced to ash in less than a day. Your fleets failed to intercept them." A winged Avri snapped from across the chamber. "Perhaps the Dominion targets you because you are weak." That accusation set off another wave of shouts, every voice rising to defend its species, its borders, its pride. The speaker struck his staff against the floor, the chamber reverberating with the sound. "Enough! This is not the time for blame. The threat is universal. We must devise a unified response." But unity was a fragile thing, and it had already fractured. The Kroth Dominion had always been a shadow in the dark, a half-whispered name spoken with dread. Their ships were not elegant like council fleets, nor precise like merchant vessels. They were brutal machines of war, jagged hulls, bristling with weapons, designed to tear through orbital defenses and choke skies with fire. No one knew exactly what they wanted beyond conquest. Some said resources, others believed it was ideology. The few survivors of their attacks described something worse: enslavement, harvest, annihilation. Delegates squabbled, their debates dissolving into old grudges. The council chamber was drowning in words when the speaker made his move. "We must face the truth," he said quietly, but the sound amplifiers carried his voice like thunder. The arguments faltered. "Our fleets are fragmented. Our species divided. We are unprepared for the Dominion's assault." "Then what?" growled the Veroan. "Surrender?" A heavy silence followed. Surrender was unthinkable, yet so was victory. The speaker's crystalline face flickered with shifting light, betraying his unease. "There is another option." A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. He had spoken of this before, long ago, when whispers of an unusual young species had reached the council's ears. A species that had clawed its way to the stars not with elegance, but with ferocity. A species that survived not by consensus, but by sheer will. "Humans," the speaker said. The word hung in the air like a weapon unsheathed. A dozen voices rose at once. "Barbarians," an Avri shrieked, wings flaring. "Unpredictable, dangerous," cried another. "They are not even members of this council. They are survivors," the speaker countered. When their world burned in wars of their own making, they endured. When resources dwindled, they adapted. And when others threatened them, they fought back with a ferocity unmatched in this galaxy. The chamber erupted again, but beneath the outrage was fear. Fear not only of the Kroth, but of the very thought of inviting humans into council space. The stories were legend. Human soldiers had once held an entire planetary siege with nothing but scavenged weapons and stubbornness. Their fleets were smaller, their technology less refined, but their victories defied probability. "Would you have us replace one threat with another?" the Avri demanded. The speaker let the words settle. "I would have us survive." Silence fell once more, heavier this time. The delegates glanced at one another, reading the same dread in each other's eyes. The Kroth advanced with every passing hour. Frontier worlds reported destruction. Refugee convoys vanished. Time was a luxury none of them possessed. At last, the Veroan delegate leaned forward, voice low and bitter. "And if the humans refuse?" "They will not," the speaker said with quiet certainty. The chamber shifted. The decision was not unanimous, but desperation left no room for hesitation. One by one, the councilors cast their votes. Reluctant, bitter, afraid, but the tally was clear. A transmission was prepared. Coordinates aligned. A request for aid, no, a plea, was launched across the void, encoded with the highest urgency. And as the message vanished into the dark between stars, the speaker's crystalline features dimmed. The council had survived for millennia through balance, through treaties, through compromise. But this was something different. This was a call for warriors. Far away, on the blue and green world known as Earth, humanity would soon hear the cry, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The arrival of humanity. The void outside the council's capital station shimmered. Thousands of eyes, organic, mechanical, and cybernetic alike, watched the feeds from orbit. Council fleets had held vigil for 3 tense days, scanning every distortion in space. Now, at last, something moved. The stars rippled. A fleet emerged. The ships were unlike anything in council registries. Where council vessels favored gleaming curves and balanced symmetry, the newcomers were dark and angular, built for war and nothing else. Their hulls bore scars, repairs welded over older wounds, yet they radiated purpose. They did not arrive in ceremonial formation. They arrived in combat configuration, weapons hot, escorts spread wide, flanking destroyers already plotting firing arcs as though battle was inevitable. By the void, whispered a delegate from the aquatic Corroan species, her gills flaring nervously as she watched the tactical feed. They come ready for war. The council chamber filled with whispers, unease palpable. A central vessel loomed largest among them, matte black, its prow bristling with weapons that dwarfed anything the council navy carried on a single hull. The ship transmitted a single, stark message. No elaborate greeting, no diplomatic flourish. Council request acknowledged. Command authority established. Prepare to brief. The speaker swallowed hard. For the first time in centuries, the council was no longer in charge. The docking bays shook as the humans arrived in person. The hiss of pressurized seals echoed through the cavernous chamber. The first to step out was a woman in matte black armor, helmet tucked beneath one arm. Her hair was cropped short, her eyes sharp and unblinking. She moved like a predator that had just entered unfamiliar territory, every step measured, yet brimming with quiet confidence. General Arya Kane. She introduced herself, voice amplified, resonant. Commander of Task Force Sol. Behind her, more humans followed, soldiers in heavy exosuits marked with glowing visors. Their weapons were secured but unmistakably lethal, each soldier alert even here in the supposed heart of galactic diplomacy. The council delegation shifted uneasily. Many had expected humans to appear primitive, desperate. Instead, they radiated control, an unnerving kind of control. The speaker greeted her formally, crystalline limbs reflecting the chamber's light. General Kane, we are honored by your swift response. She nodded once, curt. Spare me the pleasantries. Speaker, my orders are clear. Neutralize the Croth threat. I need full intelligence, fleet dispositions, planetary defenses, enemy movements. Immediately. The demand struck the chamber like a thunderclap. Immediately, sputtered the Avery delegate, wings twitching indignantly. You presume to command us as though we were your subordinates. Kane's gaze swept over him, cold and steady. You asked for help. Help comes on our terms. If you wanted endless debate, you wouldn't have called us. Gasps rippled across the chamber. No one spoke to the council that way. No one dared. Yet the Veruan delegates, scaled lips curled in a strange expression, half sneer, half grim amusement. Bold words, human. Let us hope your actions match them. The briefing chamber was alive with hollow projections. Croth fleets marked in red, council defenses scattered in blue. Kane stood at the center, hands clasped behind her back, absorbing every detail with hawk-like intensity. Her staff worked with machine efficiency, uploading new data streams, cross-referencing movements, extrapolating invasion patterns. When the Council's admiralty attempted to suggest cautious strategies, withdraw, fortify, consolidate, Kane cut them short. Static defenses won't hold. They'll overrun you one system at a time. We don't hold ground. We hit back. Hard. Hit back, asked the delegate, incredulous. But their numbers. Numbers mean nothing if their logistics collapse, Kane snapped. We cut their supply lines. We burn their staging grounds. We bleed them where they don't expect to bleed. Her words carried a ruthless certainty that unsettled the chamber. Council wars had always been careful, measured, fought with restraint. Humanity offered none of that. Humanity offered war in its rawest form. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. Alarms blared through the Council station. A Croth-raiding fleet had slipped past the outer defenses, a pack of jagged warships descending toward the capital's orbit. Panic rippled through the delegates as ships scrambled to intercept. Before orders could even be issued, Kane's soldiers were already moving. Alpha Squad, deploy, Kane ordered, her voice calm, cold steel wrapped in command. Dropships launched from the human flagship, streaking into the storm of enemy fire. Alien observers watched wide-eyed as the black-armored soldiers descended like shadows through the rain of plasma. They hit the Croth boarding craft before they could breach the station. What followed was captured by Council security feeds, grainy, chaotic, yet unforgettable. Humans fought with a ferocity none had seen before. They did not form static firing lines or wait for calculated orders. They adapted mid-battle, using enemy corpses as cover, pushing forward relentlessly. Exosuit servos hissed as they tore through armor plating, rifles blazing, blades flashing in close combat. The Croth Raiders were annihilated in less than 10 minutes. When the feeds cut back to the Council chamber, silence reigned. Delegates stared at the humans, still dripping with enemy blood, armor scarred, visors glowing faint red. General Kane removed her helmet, her expression unreadable. "That was a probe," she said flatly. "The real war hasn't even started. If you want to survive it, you'll follow our lead." No one argued. War unleashed. The Croth Dominion advanced like a tidal wave, system after system falling in fire. Yet, for the first time in centuries, the Council did not retreat behind endless debate. Humanity had seized the reins of the war, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Human fleets did not wait for the Croth to strike the next border world. Within hours of the raid on the Council station, General Kane launched her campaign. Stealth frigates vanished into FTL, their signatures masked with technologies the Council had dismissed as unstable. Assault carriers split formation, spreading across dozens of star lanes, probing, striking, testing. To the Council, it looked like chaos. To humanity, it was strategy. They dispersed their strength, hissed the Avery delegate, watching the holomap flicker with red and blue icons. "This is madness. They will be torn apart piece by piece." The Veruan delegate leaned back in his seat, slit pupils narrowing. "Or they will tear the enemy apart the same way." The Council didn't have to wait long for the answer. The first human victory came at Vero's station, a critical refueling hub the Croth had seized as a staging ground. Council analysts had predicted a costly siege. Instead, human stealth ships slipped past the defense grid and unleashed a virus into the Croth comms array. Confusion rippled through the Dominion fleet as orders scrambled. Signals jammed, friend and foe indistinguishable. Then the humans struck. Orbital drop pods rained from the void, small and fast, evading fire where no Council troopship would dare. They hit the surface like meteors, armor hissing as shock absorbers deployed. Soldiers emerged in black exosuits, moving in coordinated waves. They did not hesitate, did not entrench. They surged forward. Council observers watched in disbelief as human squads dismantled Croth defenses with ruthless efficiency. Grenades cleared bunkers, close combat blades cut down defenders, flamethrowers roared through trenches. The fighting was brutal, ugly, efficient. Within 6 hours, the station was burning, but it was back in Council hands. From there, the pattern repeated. At Selker's Rift, human hackers infiltrated the Dominion's fleet AI, feeding them phantom fleets that forced Croth commanders to scatter their forces. At Darnus IV, human commandos detonated an enemy fuel depot, igniting an explosion so vast it lit the skies of 3 neighboring moons. The Council had always fought cautiously, avoiding civilian harm, preserving infrastructure. Humans did not share such hesitation. They dismantled the Dominion with speed and savagery, hitting where the enemy least expected, vanishing before retaliation could form. "They fight like predators," murmured the Corroan delegate, watching another raid unfold. "Always striking at the throat." The speaker, crystalline limbs dimming under strain, answered softly. "No, predators kill to feed. The humans kill to win." But not all victories came without cost. On Karos Prime, the Croth counterattacked. 10 human platoons landed ahead of schedule, cut off from their reinforcements. The Council expected annihilation. Instead, they witnessed something else. The battle feeds showed rain lashing down across a ruined city. Towers smoldered, smoke twisting in the storm. Human soldiers hunkered behind broken walls, armor streaked with mud and blood. The Croth came in waves, towering beasts clad in jagged armor, their weapons shrieking fire. The humans did not break. Every meter of ground was contested with grenades, rifles, and blades. When ammunition ran dry, they scavenged from the enemy. When cover collapsed, they shifted positions mid-battle with uncanny coordination. Squad leaders barked orders through the din, rallying soldiers with words no translator could capture, but every alien understood. Unyielding defiance. The fight raged for 20 hours. By dawn, the Croth assault collapsed. Of the original human force, barely half survived. But they had held the city. The Council delegates who reviewed the footage were shaken to their cores. "They fight as though death means nothing to them," whispered one. "No," corrected the Veroan delegate, voice low. "They fight as though death is a price they've already accepted." The turning point came when human intelligence cracked the truth behind the invasion. Captured data from Dominion ships revealed the Croth motive was not mere conquest. Their empire thrived on enslavement and consumption. Entire species were taken, their populations reduced to labor and food stock. It was extermination disguised as war. The revelation spread through the Council like wildfire. Horror turned to despair. Many species had fought to avoid annihilation before, but none had faced an enemy that saw them as prey. Humanity, however, did not flinch. General Kane delivered the briefing with cold precision. "This isn't about territory. It's about survival. Either we end them, or they end you. There is no negotiation. There is no middle ground. Choose now. Fight with us, or die alone." For the first time in generations, the Council chose unity. Not out of trust in one another, but because they had seen the alternative. And at the center of it all stood humanity, brutal, unrelenting, leading the charge. By the war's 3rd month, red icons on the holomaps began to shrink. The unstoppable wave of the Croth faltered. Their fleets, once terrifying in their numbers, were bleeding out under constant raids. Every battle carried a cost. Human casualty reports were staggering. But where other species mourned, humans pressed forward. Their creed was not survival at any cost. It was victory, no matter the price. The galaxy, watching through trembling feeds, began to whisper a new name for the Terrans. Not allies, not soldiers, phantoms. The kind of warriors who came from the dark, struck without warning, and left nothing but ruin in their wake. And for the first time, the Croth Dominion hesitated. The price of victory. The war had stretched on for half a year. Entire sectors lay scarred, fleets shattered, worlds reduced to cinders. Yet for the first time since the Dominion's advance began, the holomaps in the Council chamber told a different story. The red tide was shrinking. The Croth war machine, once unstoppable, was bleeding under humanity's relentless strikes. Supply lines burned. Staging grounds collapsed. Command ships were boarded, gutted, or left drifting. Every time the Dominion regrouped, humans struck harder, faster, without mercy. But Cain knew the truth. Wars were not won by attrition alone. To break an enemy like the Croth, you had to cut out the heart, and that heart was their homeworld. The council recoiled at her proposal. Invade their core system? The Avery delegate hissed, wings snapping wide. Madness. Even your forces will be torn apart. That world is a fortress. General Cain stood, unmoving, her gaze like tempered steel. Exactly. Break the fortress, and the empire collapses. Leave it standing, and they'll rebuild. Sooner or later, they'll come again. You ask us to commit genocide, another whispered. Cain's voice was quiet, steady. I ask you to survive. The chamber fell silent. In the end, no one argued further. The vote was cast, not in enthusiasm, but resignation. Humanity would lead the final campaign. The council fleets would follow. The Croth homeworld loomed ahead like a wound in the void. A black planet shrouded in crimson storms, its orbit thick with shipyards, weapons platforms, and fleets numbering in the thousands. No one had dared approach it in centuries. Until now, humanity came first. Task Force Sol surged from FDL, flanked by council armadas. What should have been chaos instead unfolded with terrifying precision. Human carriers launched wave after wave of stealth frigates, slipping through gaps in the Dominion's wall of steel. Explosions rippled across the orbital grid as sabotage teams detonated defense nodes from within. Then the fleets clashed, the void lit with fire, missiles streaking, plasma lances cutting through hulls, railgun slugs ripping ships apart. Council vessels fought in tight formations, shields overlapping, firing in disciplined volleys. Humanity's ships moved differently, jagged patterns, deceptive retreats, sudden ambushes. Where council admirals saw recklessness, Cain saw opportunity. Drive them apart, she ordered. Make them fight on 100 fronts. Bleed them dry. The Dominion fleet fractured, pulled into a dozen scattered battles. One by one, their formations broke. And, through the chaos, the human flagship pressed forward, straight toward the planet itself. The ground assault began in storms of fire. Drop pods screamed through the atmosphere, slamming into scarred plains and shattered cities. Human soldiers poured out, visors glowing, weapons roaring. Behind them, council forces followed, hesitant at first, then galvanized by the sight of humanity pressing forward into hell without hesitation. The Croth met them in droves, towering warriors clad in jagged armor, roaring defiance as they clashed in brutal melee. The battlefield drowned in smoke and blood. Cain strode at the center of it, her command armor marked by scorch and shrapnel. She coordinated with ruthless efficiency, calling in airstrikes, directing reinforcements, shifting squads like pieces on a board. Where the line threatened to break, humans held. Where the enemy surged, they countered with relentless fury. For 3 days and nights, the fighting raged. By the fourth, the Croth fortress burned. The end came not with negotiation, nor surrender, but silence. The last Dominion command spire toppled in flames, its transmission nodes shattering into ash. Across the galaxy, Croth fleets collapsed without coordination, their empire unraveling in weeks. The war was over. The council chamber, once filled with fear and shouting, erupted in celebration. Delegates embraced, voices rising in jubilation. For the first time in living memory, the Dominion was broken. But when the cheering subsided, all eyes turned to the humans. General Cain stood before them, armored still scarred from battle. Her expression betrayed nothing. You asked for survival, she said. You have it. The Croth will not return. The speaker rose, crystalline limbs gleaming with renewed light. Humanity has done what no other could. You have saved us all. It is the judgment of this council that you be offered a permanent seat among us, with full authority and honor. Cain's eyes narrowed. We didn't do this for a seat. The chamber froze. We did this because predators came for you. And when predators come, humanity doesn't run. We fight. Remember that. She turned sharply, leaving silence in her wake. Behind her, Human soldiers filed out with the same unshakable discipline they had carried into every battle. Long after the humans had departed, the council delegates sat in uneasy quiet. They had called in saviors. What they found were warriors unlike any they had ever known. The galaxy was safe for now, but as the council looked at the hollow map of their scarred, war-torn sectors, one truth settled heavy in their hearts. The balance of power had shifted forever, and the future now belonged, in part, to the humans.